knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead, make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Welcome to the third hour of the show today. Thank you so much for being with me, folks. I have with me Stephen Pagonis, former Dutchess County prosecutor and now president of Pagonis O'Neill Investigation and Security. Back in 1987, he and several other white men were falsely accused of rape by a 15-year-old Tawana Brawley, and I'm adding a black female. A grand jury investigation concluded that Brawley had not been the victim of an attack, and that Stephen and all these men have been falsely accused. And you remember Al Sharpton jumping in on that, godless Sharpton, and just really tried to destroy, in some cases they did, these officers' lives. And this woman finally came back and admitted that she lied. I believe she did. I'll find out here in a minute. They finally found this woman. She ran off and assumed a different name and everything. They found her. Stephen, good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Stephen, it's an honor to have you here. When this story first happened, I dealt with it. It was, to me, it was an awful situation. So it's an honor after all this time to finally talk to you about it.
Well, thank you. And I always appreciate any opportunity I have to talk about it, to try to get the truth out there. So, again, thank you.
Tell the people how this whole thing started, just to remind those who know about it and those who have not heard about it, to introduce them to the story.
Well, in a nutshell, back in '86, Tawana Brawley was found in a garbage bag in an apartment complex in upstate New York. And ultimately, she was shown to have feces spread all over her, racial epithets spread all over her. She was taken to the hospital. And ultimately, she claimed that she was raped by a group of, I think it was 4 or 5 men in law enforcement. But beyond that, she never gave any specific information. She never gave any names, nothing. In comes Sharpton, Al Sharpton, Mason, and Maddox to represent her and to basically, at that time, pursue justice. At least that's what they were claiming.
Yeah.
At about the same time, a friend of mine, his name is Harry, committed suicide. Had absolutely nothing to do with the Tawana Brawley case. It was nothing but an unfortunate coincidence with respect to the timing. And once his name and picture appeared in the newspaper, Sharpton, Mason, and Maddox accused Harry of participating in whatever happened to Tawana Brawley.
And Harry was a fish kill police officer, right?
Correct. He was
Yes.
a part-time fish kill police officer. I came forward because during the period of time when Tawana claimed she was kidnapped and raped, I happened to be with Harry, and I can assure you we didn't kidnap and rape anybody. So when I came forward, it created a conflict, which the DA's office had to get out of the case. So now we move forward a little bit. Instead of Sharpton, Mason, and Maddox admitting that, geez, I made a mistake, Harry Christ had nothing to do with it, they then accused me. And
Wow.
One thing led to another, and ultimately they accused me of rape, of kidnapping, of murdering Harry, being involved in organized crime, of being involved in conspiracy. It was just stop with it.
I wondered about you last night. Here you are standing up for your friend, Chris, who had not committed suicide because of the Tawana Brawley situation, but because there were other personal issues that he was dealing with. And Sharpton and others tried to use that to say, see, I told you he did it. That's why he committed suicide. And you spoke up for your friend, and then they accused you of being one of the rapists of Tawana Brawley. Just tell us the shock of that and what that felt like. I know you said it probably, but we couldn't hear the mental and emotional aspect of that.
Well, it was devastating. It was devastating to me. It was devastating to my family. To see it and to hear it. Again, I learned that they were accusing me by watching the news. And the next day, my name and the allegations were spread on the front page of definitely every local newspaper and certainly a number of national newspapers. I mean, that was a hot story. A prosecutor and police officers kidnapping and raping a young black child. That's going to sensationalize anything.
Yeah.
It was devastating, though, and essentially what I was looking at was conviction by headlines. I mean, every day there was something else in the newspaper, and it was virtually impossible for me to get my story out there over Mason, Maddox, and Sharpton.
I remember that situation as though it was yesterday. A year went by, according to the report, and the grand jury finally realized that this woman had lied. Brawley had lied. What was that like when they announced that she had lied, and why didn't she go to jail for lying?
Well, first of all, what was it like? It was wonderful. I mean, I believe that the investigation that was launched by New York State was one of the most extensive and costly investigations that had ever been conducted in New York State. A tremendous amount of resources were used ultimately to arrive at the conclusion that this was a hoax, that nothing that Tawana Brawley, or at least that Mason, Maddox, and Sharpton were claiming was true. As to your question concerning Tawana being arrested, if you look back to this day, I don't think Tawana has ever publicly accused me of raping or kidnapping her. She's come out and she said things like Steve Pagonis knows what he did. We all know what Steve Pagonis did. But she has never personally come out and accused me. It's always been Mason, Maddox, and Sharpton.
Right. That's a very interesting point. You're right about that when I think about it. I've never heard her say you did it.
No. But if she is guilty and liable of anything, it's of remaining silent when she knew what the truth was. Is
it true that she made the whole story up because she was on her way home late or something and was afraid of her parents?
It'd be wrong of me to say why she did it. That certainly is the speculation, and there seems to be evidence to back that up. I honestly do not know what happened to her, but I do know it didn't happen to her, and that basically involves anything that links me and the other individuals to her. I mean, to this day, I've never, ever seen her in person.
Would you like to meet her in person and have a conversation with her about this whole deal?
No, I really don't want to meet her in person. But listen to me. I have given her ample opportunity to come forward and tell the truth. And, here we are now, 25 years later. We've located her. We're executing our judgment. We're garnishing her wages. And still, I'm giving her the opportunity. All she has to do is tell the truth, and I'll talk. I'll consider waiving this judgment. This whole thing's been about the truth.
She is now 40 years old, according to the New York Post. She's 40 years old. She's living on an assumed name. She's a nurse in Virginia there somewhere, and you have found her. So now that you have found her, you are able to sue her. Is that right?
Right. Well, what happened was she lost this trial years and years ago by default. So we sued her. We won, and now what we've done is we've executed our judgment, and her wages get garnished. And then at some point in the future, we'll be able to sit down and depose her as to what her assets are and what other things that we can attach legally. But again, this is not about the money.
Right.
For me, I just want the truth to come out.
That's right. Did you get justice from by way of the courts from Sharpton and the other guys who were involved in that situation with her?
Well, no. Did I get satisfaction? I got satisfaction. I mean, Sharpton had his judgment paid. Sharpton paid Maddox's judgment. We garnished Mason's wages. But you know what? I need to hear Sharpton admit that now he knows Steve Pagonis had nothing to do with whatever happened to Tawana Brawley. I'm not looking for an apology. I'm looking for admission that he knows I had nothing to do with it.
And it sounds as though he always knew that. He just used it to further his own agenda.
Oh, absolutely. His goal was to further his own political and financial agenda, and he did that through the Tawana Brawley case, absolutely. You know, it's one thing not to see the truth. It's a whole other thing when you close your eyes to it. That's what Sharpton did.
What do you know what happened to the other officers? Where are they now? How are they doing? How are they and their families doing? Do you know what's going on with them?
Yeah. Scott Peterson, who is the trooper, he actually works with me in my company.
Yeah.
You know, listen, this has affected everybody. The other individuals, they live with this.
Yeah.
You know, me more so than anyone else, because Sharpton grabbed a hold of my name and wouldn't let go, and I was able to fight. You know, the other guys chose not to fight, but I felt that I had to fight. I had young kids. Yeah, I had young kids. I had to prove my innocence.
How has this changed your life? Going through this whole ordeal, now it's being proven that you were innocent. Years have gone by. How did this affect your life personally?
Well, you know, it's funny. Here I am now. I'm in the investigation business. And because of what happened to me, I realized that a lot of times what appears to be the truth or what's reported as being the truth may not actually be the truth. You know, you have to do a little bit of digging. You have to do some searching for yourself. And you know, like I say, I took a beating from the media. And anybody who was sitting back reading the headline day after day after day, they would have assumed that, gee, Steve Pagonis must have had something to do with this. In reality, I had nothing to do with it. And because of what went through, or what I went through, I'm now in a position where I realize that. And I'm a lot more careful before I make an accusation.
Yes.
And before I do make an accusation, I'm pretty sure that I can back it up.
Let me take a short break, Stephen. We'll come back for our final segment. I want you to give out your information, and back in a moment, folks.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Tawana Brawley. I'm not a liar, and I'm not crazy.
It was 1987. Tawana Brawley was a 15-year-old who claimed she was raped by 6 white men in law enforcement. And Al Sharpton took up her cause. But there was no forensic evidence of any sexual attack, and there was evidence Tawana made up the whole story. The case, labeled a hoax, was dismissed, and Sharpton was forced to pay $65,000 to those he had named. But in all this time, he has never voiced any regret. You have gone back and looked at things with such a clear eye. You've apologized, you've asked for forgiveness, except on Tawana Brawley. I don't get it.
I'll be honest with you. I have thought about that a million times. I just don't believe they treated that case fair.
If I knew that I had in any way contributed to falsely accusing someone, I think I would feel an obligation to say I'm sorry.
I think you're right. I think the operative word is if you knew that. I don't know that.
If they didn't do
but
it...
But suppose they did. Suppose they did.
But they didn't. They didn't.
Wow. That was Al Sharpton. Stephen Pagonis is with me. And, Stephen, you had said that you waited for the day that Al Sharpton would tell the truth about the situation. He's not going to tell the truth because the truth is not in him, and it wouldn't benefit or help his career if he told the truth.
Well, you know what? I think it's despicable because you have an individual who, as much as I disagree with what Sharpton does. He clearly has a God-given gift to talk, to rally people, to get support, and he ought to be using it for the right reasons instead of spewing hatred and race baiting.
Yeah.
So I honestly, I really hope that the day comes when I'm not looking for him to say that Tawana lied. I'm looking for them to say that whatever happened to Tawana Brawley, Steve Pagonis had nothing to do with it.
That's right.
And you want to know something? I really think that day will come. It's just a matter of time.
Oh, I hope you're right, and I hope that I'm alive when it happened, and because you deserve to hear that from this guy. But you know what? Short of a miracle, I don't see it happening. Al Sharpton is clearly a son of Satan, and it would take a repentance heart for him to do that. And I just don't see it happen. His ego is more important than the love of God. Things are possible. All things are possible.
Yes.
Steve, is there a website or anything you would like to give out at this point before we run out of time here?
Oh, sure, Reverend. Our website is www.pagonesoneil, PAGONESONEILL.com. And Reverend, thank you so much for airing this story. I think it's an important story. I want people to know the truth, and I really appreciate your time and your listeners' time.
Well, it's an honor to do it. I can't. It's hard. I can almost cannot believe that God has given me the opportunity to present the truth, to put the truth out there, to put the story out there. When this thing first happened, I mean, I was all over the media fighting on behalf of you and the other officers who had been falsely accused by this guy and that woman, because I know that if Sharpton is involved in it, it's no good. There's no truth in it.
Amen to that.
I knew that from day one. So I was all over this. My final question, are you a better man or a better person as a result of going through this whole thing?
Yes. You say God works in mysterious ways. This has definitely enabled me to see things in a different light. Like I say, I'm very cautious about allegations, whether they're made by other people or before I make them. I want to make sure that they're backed up by evidence.
Yes.
I'm very careful. I have seen personally the devastation that a lie could cause. And it started out as one little lie being told by a little girl and turned into a national hoax, and it devastated a lot of people. So I know the damage that a lie could cause.
Yeah, I realized from this and other things too, but this story is that we cannot take for granted that the media is telling us the truth about things. Because,
Absolutely.
They'll get out there and say anything and present it, and if we're not conscious, we will believe lies from the media.
Well, the media is supposed to report the news, not make the news.
That's right.
And I think a lot of what you saw during the Tawana Brawley case was the media going out there trying to make the news, and that's the problem, like you said.
Stephen, it's an honor to meet you. It's an honor to have you on the show. If I could be of any help at any time you want to come back on and talk about anything, you have an open invitation.
Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate your time and your listeners' time. God bless.
All right. God bless you, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 888-7753-773.
Shut up. I don't want to hear from you.